Hello bookworms! Today I'm going to be doing my top 10 contemporary and thriller books that I read in 2018 video. As I said in my last video, which was my top 10 fantasy sci-fi books, I like to wait until the very end of the year to film this because you just never know if you're gonna discover a new favorite at the last moment. It did happen for this video as well. So these were my favorite contemporary and thriller books that I read in 2018. The first book, which will be no surprise to anyone, is The Lying Woods by Ashley Elston, except that instead of being a thriller novel, this is really more of a contemporary novel that has a mystery twist to it. But I really loved this. It was really a story of family. I absolutely fell in love with the setting in Louisiana and the pecan trees, and it just like made me want to go there, and I felt like I was there, and it was so beautifully written. I love the way that Ashley Elston tells a story. It's just so impressive how she can lay everything out for you but still completely just take you by surprise. I ended up crying during this one. I really loved it. It follows a boy named Owen, and his whole life has been funded on stolen money. His father was like embezzling money. He gets pulled out of his private school and has to return to his small town, finish out his senior year of high school with the children of all the parents who his dad screwed over. So there's a lot of conflict going on there. He's trying to figure out and come to terms with, could his dad have possibly done this? It's such an engaging story, and she really makes you feel for all of the characters within the novel. I was totally taken by surprise and I loved it to pieces. Number 2 on my list is Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. This is a contemporary romance novel, and it was by far a surprise favorite for me. It follows a girl named Zori and a guy named Lennon, and they used to be best friends. Their families are pretty much at war with one another, and they have like started avoiding each other at all costs. Due to a set of circumstances, the two of them end up on this camping trip together, and then they end up alone and lost in the woods. And it's just so good. Like, I was just so happy while I was reading this. I felt really heavily invested in Zori and Lennon's story. There was like nothing that I wanted more than for these two crazy kids to work it out and get over the miscommunication that happened. And while it is like a contemporary romance, there are definite points of it that you're like, yes, this is kind of predictable. There were still surprises for me, and the way that the story came together at the end, again, this one made me cry too. I just really loved the way that everything played out. I was not expecting to love this one like anywhere near as much as I did, so it was a total surprise favorite for me. I actually even liked it better than Alex Approximately, which I read last year by Jen Bennett. This is now definitely my favorite novel of hers so far. Number 3 on my list is another thriller, and that is Sadie by Courtney Summers. This is one that I really enjoyed. I think that the format of it was so unique, and that really added to the storytelling. Part of the story is told in podcast form, and there is an actual podcast that you can go and listen to that was recorded, and it has like the background noises and all that kind of stuff. I've listened to clips of it, but I actually didn't listen to the podcast when I was reading the book, but I think that it would have added to the experience. But either way, I enjoyed it. Like, it's on this list for a reason. So it follows a girl named Sadie, who's actually a little bit older, and her younger sister was murdered, and Sadie believes that she knows the person responsible. So she sets out to go and take vengeance on her sister's killer. So you get some chapters that are told through the podcast, who's someone that's trying to figure out the mystery behind Sadie's disappearance. And then you also get chapters told from Sadie's point of view, and she's explaining her journey to find this person that she believes to be responsible. I truly loved it. I know that there were some people that were disappointed with the kind of open ending, but I think it could not have been more perfect for this story. One of the things that I appreciated most about it is that a lot of the violent scenes were fade to black, so you weren't subjected to how terrible some of these things that happened actually were. Like, you had to use your imagination to fill in the blanks, but it was clear enough that you knew like what was happening, but it wasn't like beating you over the head with it. Yeah, I was really surprised, because a lot of times thrillers can be kind of hit or miss for me, especially young adult ones. They tend not to be very memorable, but Sadie is one that I have thought about so many times since I finished reading it. Next on my list is 9 Days and 9 Nights by Katie Cotugno. This is the second book to 99 Days, which I really love by her. How to Love is still my favorite of her novels, but 99 Days is a close second, and this one was a very close third. I really enjoyed getting more time with these characters. I really enjoyed seeing the way that our main character has changed since the events of the first book. And despite the fact, so this was actually like a travel book. It was set abroad in Europe. While that was one of the things that was very appealing to me going into it, it actually made me want to visit Boston more than anywhere else in Europe that she talked about. I'm so thankful that Katie decided to write a second book because I really do love these characters. So this was just like perfect to me. She writes extremely messy and complicated feminist stories. I think the way that she tells stories is really impressive, and I just eat up her writing. Her writing style just like speaks to me. And again, yeah, I really liked this one. I definitely would recommend it, but you have to read 99 Days first or you won't get the same impact. Next on my list is The Way You Make Me Feel by Maureen Gu. This was another like kind of surprising favorite to me. I liked Maureen's last book, I Believe in a Thing Called Love, but it wasn't a favorite for me. But this one like really was. We follow our main character named Clara, and she is being raised by her father. He owns a food truck in Los Angeles. It's a Brazilian and Korean fusion food truck. All the food they were making sounded so good and so different, but I really liked it because Clara was like not the most likable main character. She was very like snarky and kind of sassy, but I thought that she was fun to be in the head of because it was so different than a lot of other young adult contemporary heroines. But even more so than Clara, what I loved was Hamlet, who was the love interest in this book. He was just like the sweetest little cinnamon roll, and I loved him so much. I really, really loved the two of them together. I really liked the like positive influence that he kind of had on Clara, but I really just thought that their relationship was something very special. If you haven't read this one yet, I definitely recommend checking it out. Next on my list is Stay Sweet by Siobhan Vivian. This is another one that I really loved, and I definitely foresee myself rereading every April. As you might know, I kind of like ice cream. If you've not yet seen my Instagram account, it is like full of ice cream photos. I pretty much live for ice cream. This was one that I just really loved because it follows a main character named Amelia, and Amelia works at this ice cream stand throughout the summer, and she's actually been promoted to head girl. She has like a lot of the responsibilities, but on her first day when she's going to open up the stand, she finds that the owner has actually passed away, and then Amelia ends up having to deal with all of these other business decisions and friction between the girls who work at the stand and this new boss who is coming over to kind of take over the business. And he's a man, and there's never been a man involved in this ice cream stand before. It's always been all run by females, but there's just such a romantic story behind it, and I really truly loved it. I had no idea that there would be like a World War II love story going on, and we get some flashbacks to the 1940s when the stand is first being started, and it just like was so beautiful, and it really got me so excited for summer. And actually I went to the signing event for it at Books Are Magic. Siobhan Vivian said that she changed the ending a little bit, so I need to read the finished copy because I only read the art copy, and I'm curious to see like how it changed in the final version. But I really loved it. I really loved like their uniforms. I love like the whole vibe of summer. It just got me really excited for the season, and it was like the perfect way to kick off spring for me. Next on my list is Roomies by Christina Lauren. This is one that you definitely have to suspend a lot of disbelief for, and I totally know that. Like, it's not a realistic story in the slightest, but I really loved it because it's set in New York City, and the main character has two uncles who are heavily involved in Broadway. So there was a lot of Broadway within the story, and it's really those elements that made it one of my best reads. But like I said, it's like completely unrealistic. I did really enjoy the love story though. I thought that it was very, very cute, and I know that there are a lot of people that don't like this one, but this really was one of my favorites of the year. I also really like the cover. It's really fun, and it's a really quick read, so if you haven't read it, I would suggest doing so, but just know that it's wild and out there. Next on my list is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I really loved this book. This was one of the first books that I read in 2018. It was my first 5-star read of the year that wasn't a reread. I really, really loved it. Definitely has insta love in it because the whole novel takes place over the course of a day. One of them has just found out that her family is illegal illegally living in the United States and they're being sent back to their home country of Jamaica. And our other main character, Daniel, is Korean and he has a whole bunch of pressure on him from his parents because they want him to go and to become a doctor. But Daniel is really like a dreamer and he's into writing and poetry. And also Natasha is actually like super into scientific fact and doesn't really put any stock in like the creative arts. So when the two of them meet, it is just so cute because they kind of immediately butt heads, but then obviously very quickly, since it takes place over such a short span of time, end up forming a relationship, and it's so cute and I just really loved it. I thought it was so well done. It starts with a quote from Carl Sagan's Cosmos series, so I just like immediately was into it. This is definitely a really great book if you haven't read it yet. And the last book on my list, so this is actually a top 9 instead of a top 10. I ended up reading less contemporary this year than I usually do, so I just didn't have another one that I felt like belonged on here. But that is The Penderwyx by Jane Birdsall. This is a middle grade series and it's so beautifully written. It feels like you're reading a classic book. It follows 4 sisters and they are on their summer vacation and they meet this boy and they get into all kinds of trouble at the estate that they're staying at, and it's just so like heartwarming and so innocent and so like you just can't put it down. It made me smile so much the whole time that I was reading it. I really loved it. I really loved each of the sisters. I think each of their personalities were so cute. I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of the series. So those are all of my favorite contemporary and thriller books that I read in 2018. Let me know if you guys read any of these and if any of them made it to your favorites lists as well. And also let me know some recommendations for 2019 so I can read some good ones right off the bat. That's all that I have for this video, and I will see you guys soon in a new one. Bye!